Hello again. So how much training is too much training for endurance sports like cycling and running? How are you going to measure it? I personally like hours, but I also use the chronic training load and acute training load type thing in training peaks because that accounts for the intensity of the training that you're doing as well. So that leads into the type of training that you're doing. If you're doing mostly endurance or easy sort of mileage, easy training, easy hours to build up a good base, you can do a hell of a lot more of that than you can do of short intervals that can be quite debilitating. Things that challenge your anaerobic capacity can wear you out quite quickly. So how much high intensity training are you doing? How many hard sessions are you doing? Perhaps is one way to look at it. Are you doing gym work? Because that adds a bit of stress to your system. Are you doing how many hard days are you doing? So one thing that is perhaps in vogue nowadays is that you have hard days and easy days. So if you do interval session on one day, you might do your strength session on the same day, and that means you can have an easy day. So you make the hard days harder and the easy days easier. And there are other factors that come into it, like how stressful is your life? Have you got a stressful job? Have you got a heavy family commitments? Have you got to do a lot of running around outside your training and your work? Are you so-called time crunched? Do you have to rush your training sessions? You're squeezing things, you're squeezing a 1 hour session in an hour and 5 minutes and then your lunch hour or something like that. How stressful is your life? And that has an impact on your recovery. And also how old you are is, it's relevant, but I don't think it's as important as a lot of people like to make out. And then of course, what are you wanting to achieve plays into how hard you're prepared to work to achieve that and the sacrifices you're prepared to make. In determining how much training is enough or how much training is too much, it's quite useful to work out how quickly you recover. How quickly do you recover from a hard training session? How quickly do you recover from a long training session? How quickly do you recover from a hard week? And how quickly might you recover from 3 hard weeks if you have, say, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, which is quite a traditional way of training. And that might be a good way to build your training plan, to think about how long it takes you to recover rather than try and think about how much you can deal with. Because the way to get fit is to prioritize the most important training sessions. So an example might be somebody who's not done a lot of training for a long time and they want to build up their endurance. So they know they can ride for 4 hours, but it takes them a while to recover. So they start building up that duration of a ride on a Saturday, 5 hours, 6 hours. And that means, that might mean that they can't do anything very much until Wednesday or probably even Thursday of the following week. So too much training for them might be hard, long session on a Saturday and trying to do something hard again on a Tuesday because they wouldn't be adequately recovered. But for somebody who can quite comfortably handle the weekend training sessions, they could probably do a high intensity session on the Tuesday. So too much training for one person is, as you obviously you will know, it's common sense. Too much training for one person might not be enough for another person. And using this approach of looking at how quickly you recover from your hard sessions, rather than looking at something as I want to do 8 hours a week or 10 hours a week, including 3 hard sessions, might be a better way to think about things. So think about the main sessions you want to do, the stimulus that you want to apply to your body, what you want to progress, and then what other training can you fit in usefully to support that. The good thing is that for most of us, the difference between enough training and too much training is quite wide. So the amount of training that you need to do to create a stimulus and get fitter could be a good bit less, significantly less than doing too much training and overdoing it. So think about, what's the minimum that you can do to create the stimulus that you want. That's the way that most elite performers do. They think about how can they get the maximum benefit from the minimum amount of training. And that's the way to make progress, because that's the way to be consistent. You're avoiding injury, you're able to train frequently and consistently, and you're minimising that risk of overdoing it. Being tired might mean that you're working hard, but it might not mean that you're building your fitness. It might mean that you're just getting yourself tired So think about doing perfect training, not hard training. And rather than thinking about an absolute number, an absolute volume of training that is the right amount of training for you, think about how to track your response to the training and your recovery from the training. So you might measure your heart rate variability, you might measure your resting heart rate in the morning when you get up. You might measure various other factors like your subjective metrics, your mood, your feeling of fatigue, your perceived exertion during your training. And learn, be your own personal scientist, as Claire suggested this morning. I think it's a really great phrase. And work out what the feelings are and what the metrics are that show that you're doing too much training, and learn that that's time to back off, or that's time to keep going for another week or something like that. Because it's this ongoing measurement and understanding and development of both the way you feel about your training and how you deal with it and how you adapt to the things that come along that is going to make you a much better athlete than just saying, I'm going to do 8 hours a week for the next 6 weeks and that's going to get me fit. Well, it might get you fit, but it might also get you injured and ill. But if you say, I'm going to do 8 hours a week for the next 6 weeks, but I'm going to track all these various metrics, and some weeks I might manage 10 hours and some weeks I might have to do 4 hours, or I might have to have a complete rest for a few days, then you're probably going to be much better at the end of those 6 weeks by being adaptive and flexible than you would be if you just tried to hammer through. So be your own personal scientist. That's a great phrase. And Claire's written a blog on this subject, so I'll link that in the description below. It probably go into a bit more depth than I've been able to in this video, and of course get in touch if we can help in any way. Be familiar with the signs of overtraining, poor mood, grumpiness, not sleeping particularly well, various other factors, not being able to concentrate. Sometimes I find that if I spill the coffee in the morning, that's a sign that maybe I'm getting towards that sort of limit. Just look for these external signs. They don't have to be anything to do with training, actually. It's just life signs that something might not be quite right. And deal with it quickly and decide how to deal with it. Do you need to have a rest day, just train a bit easier, or just carry on and hopefully things will settle down? If you're the athlete that's doing, building up those Saturday endurance rides, and you're spilling your coffee on a Monday morning, well, fair enough, because you're planning to be tired. So don't think just because you're tired and your metrics aren't showing the super fit or super recovered condition that's a problem, because it might not be a problem. If you're expecting to be tired, if you're planning to be tired and that period is your recovery period, then it's okay, because you're expecting to be tired and that's part of your planned routine. So it's not necessarily that you're doing too much, it's just the fact that you've got to take the time to recover from the harder work that you have been doing. It can be a good idea to include a regular break. So it can be a good idea to have a very easy day once a week, or a complete rest day once a week, and also an easy few days or an easy week every few weeks. So maybe schedule an easy week every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks, particularly during in the off season when you don't have any events coming up. Then the temptation can be to just keep hammering through and working without taking a break. But if you actually schedule your breaks into your training plan and make sure you take them, then it's sort of a catch-all. You might be slightly below what might be the theoretical optimum level of training, but at least you're on the safe side and you're taking that step back. And actually during that rest period you can evaluate things and maybe change your training a little bit for the next block. Do a few tests after your rest period and see how things are progressing and adjust things, and that flexible approach is probably the optimal approach. There have been a lot of studies on how to automate this process of spotting overtraining and when to back off or when to push harder, and nothing really works perfectly. So I was thinking about what can we do for you that might help you, because part of our mission, I suppose, as a business is to support as many people as we possibly can to perform, achieve their goals. So I'll put a link to a questionnaire in the description if you want to fill in the questionnaire, and then we'll email you back with our thoughts on how we think your training is progressing, whether we think you're doing the sensible things, and hopefully you'll find that to be helpful to you. Hope you like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.